Welcome to Average Joe's Pool. Today we're coming at you with another in our series of pool cue review videos. And for this video, once again, we are delving into the world of beginners pool cues. So today we're going to be having a look at this cue, which has been kindly supplied to us by ASKA. This is the ASKA L9. So first of all, what do we know about ASKA? Well, ASKA have been around since 1999. They are a Canadian-based distributor, but they sell their products all over North America. And when it comes to ASKA cues, where are they manufactured? Well, it might be no surprise, especially as we're looking at budget cues, to find out that this cue is manufactured in China. But as we always mention in our cue reviews, just for the simple fact that it's made in China, don't let that put you off. And in actual fact, some of the world's leading cue manufacturers, companies such as Predator, Lucasi, proper top-end cues, are all made in China. So just the simple fact that it's made in China is not necessarily a bad thing when it comes to cues. And regular viewers of our channel will no doubt recognise the ASKA brand because a little while back, we did a review of ASKA's L2 cue, which is the slightly younger brother, if you like, of the L9. And if you've already seen the L2 review, you will remember, of course, that it scored really well for a budget cue. And speaking of budget, what is the current price on the ASKA L9? Well, this cue can be picked up on Amazon. Current price is $59.99. And it's good to know that ASKA do also sell these in multi-packs. If you're buying the multi-packs, the price per cue comes down considerably. So if you're looking for a cheap set of house cues or something like that, if you want to buy one of the sets, you can get each cue for as low as $43. And we will be adding Amazon links for the ASKA L9 in both the single form and the multi-packs into the video description below. So if you're interested in picking up one of these L9s, then please be sure to help support what we do here at Average Joe's Pool, and please be sure to click those links. And the ASKA L9 that we have here is available in a choice of 4 weights. We have 18, 19, 20 or 21 ounce options. And this cue is available in 5 different colours. We have the green wood stain that we have here. It's also available in black or a brown wood stain or red or blue. And with regards to warranty, what sort of warranty do ASKA provide on their cues? Well, unfortunately, this is where things do get a little bit vague because ASKA don't really make any real mention of their warranty terms or period. So that's definitely something to bear in mind because there may not be any ongoing warranty. However, if you are ordering your cues from Amazon, and of course you do get a 30-day return window. And so if you were to order one of these cues and found out that there was a problem with it, then of course it could be returned back to Amazon. But beyond that 30-day period, it's likely that you're not going to get any real coverage with regards to warranty. So that's something to bear in mind. So we now know what the ASKA L9 is, and we also know how much it costs. So what exactly are we buying with our $59.99? Well, let's take a look at the specifications. So first of all, let's take a quick look at packaging. And ASKA were kind enough to supply us with the 5-pack of the L9 cues. And in the set of 5 cues, you actually get 2 that are 19 ounces. And we tend to do all of our reviews here, ideally, on 19-ounce cues. One of which was the green one, which is what we'll be testing today. So our 5 cues came packaged in a cardboard box. Inside the cardboard box, each of these cues had their own individual poly bag. So nothing exciting to report when it comes to packaging, functional, and what else to expect for this kind of money. And for our butt here, this is actually constructed from Canadian hard rock maple. And for the handle here, we have a black and white Irish linen wrap. And with regards to decoration, we have these 5 dashed rings, which are also finished with a silver ring on the outside of each. And with regards to our joint, this is finished in stainless steel, and this is a 5/16 by 18. And on the end of our cue, we have a standard rubber bumper with no logo. Speaking of logos, we do not have a shaft logo on this cue, but we do have a logo just here finished in gold, and additionally we have the logo also on the butt of the cue.
Hey, can you die from swallowing gold?
So next, moving on to the shaft, and our shaft here definitely does have a gentle taper. Now in a very similar fashion to the L2 that we did review previously, What we have here is kind of a cross. It's not a full pro taper. We don't have that kind of hard shoulder that comes in and smooths off. What we have is a very gentle, almost a scooped taper. So we've got somewhere kind of between what you might call a pro taper or a conical taper. So the taper that we have here is definitely quite a gentle one, but it is definitely tapered, which is nice to see on a budget cue. Next, moving on to the ferrule. This is a standard white ABS ferrule, and this is meant to measure 25 millimeters. However, it came in a little bit longer. We measured it in at 26.25 millimeters. And the tip that we have on here, again, just like our L2, the tip is a Le Pro. And Le Pro tips are manufactured by the Tweeton Fibre Company, the same company that makes Master and Triangle chalks. And the thing with the Le Pro is it is quite a hard tip. And the tip diameter is listed as being 13 millimeters. We came in very, very close to that, 13.12. As mentioned before, we do not have any logos on the shaft, but we do have one of the decorative rings on the end here. And as to be expected, the last few inches on our shaft here is finished with a varnish. And with regards to length, the L9 here is a standard 58-inch pool cue, and actually measured in at 58 6/16. However, if you exclude the butt cap from that measurement, including the tip, you get it pretty much bang on 58. And that comprises of a shaft length of 29 3/16 inches. And we have a butt length of 29 1/4 inches, including the butt cap. And with regards to diameters, on the butt end here, we have a diameter of 32.28 millimeters. And our diameter at the joint here is 21.3 millimeters. And when it comes to weight, our review cue here is a 19-ounce model. And it did weigh in pretty close to that, coming in at 18.855 ounces. And that weight comprised of a butt weight of 14.57 ounces and a shaft weight of 4.28 ounces. And as usual, when we review our cues here, we do always remove the butt cap and have a look to see what type of weight we have on the inside of the cue. And often with cues such as these, especially when there are a wide variance of weights, this goes down as low as 18, you would normally expect to find perhaps a 1 ounce weight for a 19-ounce cue. However, on the ASKA L9 here, our 19-ouncer came with absolutely no weight in the butt whatsoever. So next, taking a quick look at the center of balance for our cue. And the center of balance on the ASKA L9 came in at 20 1/4 inches, measured from the rear, including the butt cap, which puts the center of balance of this cue around 9 centimeters in front of the grip. So now we know exactly what our ASKA L9 cue is. So next we need to run our cue through some technical tests. So next up, precisely how straight is our L9? Well, in addition to a visual inspection, we'll be running 3 straightness tests. The first of which is the good old table roll test. And this test throws up no issues for the L9, which rolls just great. However, this is a very basic test, so let's up the ante with test number 2, the rail roll test. And for this test, the cue will be rolled along the solid edge of the rail, whilst watching the tip full wobble. And as we can see, we're definitely seeing some wobble, so we know that things are not 100% straight. So let's try the toughest test of all and get the cue onto the ball bearing cue rollers. And once again, we can see that we definitely do have some wobble. And interestingly, the amount of wobble we are seeing here is almost identical to what we saw when we tested the L9's little brother, the L2. So it's not great, but it's not terrible considering the price point of the cue. At this price, it's within the boundaries of what we would reasonably consider to be acceptable. So the L9 scores a middle of the road 2.5 stars out of 5 for straightness.
Well, Wendy, you're looking well.
Our next test will be testing the performance of the L9 using 2 deflection tests, squirt and natural pivot length, as well as play testing. So first up is squirt. And the squirt test is conducted over a length of 75 inches, which is the distance from the head spot to the rear rail on a 9-foot table. And we'll be using maximum parallel English coupled with a hard shot. And the test is repeated at least 10 times on each side to ensure an accurate average. And the ASKA L9 came in at 3 inches, which is bang on average, so not a bad result for a Q at this price. Next up is natural pivot length, and this test is repeated at increasing lengths until the maximum is found, which must then be duplicated 3 times to ensure accuracy. And for this test, the longer the natural pivot length, the lower the Q's deflection, so longer is definitely better. And the ASKA L9 locked in at just 11.5 inches, which is below average. We definitely would have liked to have seen better here, even considering the lower price tag. So that's our technical tests complete, but what we need to do is find out how well or badly this Q actually plays. So next we're going to get this onto the table and start having a little bit of fun. And if you've ever seen any of our Q reviews before, you will know that we always give all the products that we review here at Average Joe's Pool a minimum of 5 hours use on the table to make sure that we can give a fair and accurate review. And so if you were to ask me what time it is, it's playtime.
I think that ball just blew up. And yes, my hair is aflame.
So our ASKA L9 has now had more than 5 hours on the table. So what were the key takeaways with regards to performance? Well, the biggest plus point of the ASKA L9 is definitely that it feels like a very capable Q. The Q is nice and predictable, and it has a nice competent feel about it. Now, another unexpected bonus with the ASKA L9 is actually found it was a very good brake Q, thanks in part to its super hard Le Pro tip. But that's also somewhat of a negative, so let's have a look at those. And so talking about that hard Le Pro tip that we have on the ASKA L9, we had exactly that same tip on the ASKA L2 that we reviewed previously. And just like on the ASKA L2, unfortunately this tip is probably too hard for this Q, remembering that this is a budget Q, and so this is really aimed at beginners. And unfortunately, having that tip fitted to this Q does make the Q overall feel a little bit too stiff, and also it has a slightly dead feel to the hit. And as I mentioned before, it is a very competent Q, but that tip is holding it back. Now, if this cue was fitted with a medium tip or perhaps even a medium soft tip, this would really bring this cue to life. But unfortunately, with this tip on this cue, it's not the easiest cue to use. Like I said, it does give it that slightly dead feel, and also it makes it a little bit harder to get good control with spin shots. And so overall, you get somewhat of a jilted experience when using the ASKA L9. And without question, the biggest contributing factor to the overall feel of this is going to be the tip, which is a really strange choice for a beginner's cue. So what we have here is somewhat of an unfortunate combination. The cue itself definitely does have quite a stiff feel to it, and when you couple that with the hard Pro tip, it's just a combination that doesn't quite work. And of course, you could go ahead and fit the ASKA L9 with an alternative tip, but the cost of buying a decent new tip for this cue and of course having it professionally fitted would probably cost at least half the price of the cue, and so it does make it somewhat impractical. So as we mentioned before on that ASKA L2, it's a real shame that these are fitted with the Pro tips. So overall, we'd say that the L9 plays a little better than you may expect from a cue at this price point. But it's also held back a little by its choice of tip and its stiffness. So the L9 scores a respectable 2.5 stars out of 5 for performance. So one of the things on the ASKA L9 that we definitely liked was these decorative rings. It's quite a nice design with the twin silver rings with the stripe with the little squares inside it, and it helps elevate the overall look of the cue and make it look like a more expensive cue than it actually is. Likewise, the wood stain on the ASKA L9 here is really, really nice. You've got some really nice deep colours and it really brings out the grain of the wood. And we also really like the linen wrap that we have on here. It's really nice to have a proper Irish linen wrap on a cue at this price, and this is one of the main upgrades over the ASKA L2, which came with a plain black nylon wrap. It's also really nice to see that they've put a really nice shape to the taper on this cue. It's not quite a proper Pro taper, but it definitely has a nice smooth tapered profile. And the other thing that we have to mention if we're talking about features is this Pro tip. Now it is really nice to have a proper branded tip on the cue, and unfortunately with regards to features, which probably the biggest negative feature is that tip. Although it is a good tip and it is a branded tip, it is also a very hard and quite unforgiving tip, and on a beginner's cue that's a strange feature to have. So the ASKA L9 definitely comes well featured for its $60 price tag, and the additional features over the ASKA L2 easily justify the $10 price increase. So we'll award a solid 4 out of 5 stars for features.
Or jest with those who already are his friends.
Next up, what do we have with regards to quality when it comes to our ASKA L9? So let's start with the positives, and the first positive we're going to look at is the wood stain. So overall, it's a really nice wood stain. It's a nice and deep colour and there are no defects. It's not patchy, it's nice and solid and uniform. And it catches the light really well and does help give the cue that slightly more expensive look. So next up, looking at the linen wrap that we have on the L9 here. This is a very nice quality, genuine Irish linen wrap. It's finished in black and white, and this is one of the key upgrades over the ASKA L2. Now, although in the specifications of this cue they don't say whether the wrap has been pressed or not, I would say it probably has, but it's not the best press in the world. It would be lightly pressed at best, but it does have a nice shine to it and a nice feel to it. You can't really feel too much of the fibres, so it does have a nice and smooth finish to it. And with regards to the build quality, it's generally very good. You certainly can't feel any imperfections on any of these rings. Everything does feel nice and smooth. On the joint here, you can just about catch your nail just here between your joint and the shaft. However, that is very, very minor, and for a cue at this price point, it's certainly forgivable. And also the transition that we have here between the shaft to the ferrule, and from the ferrule to the tip is also lovely and smooth. And with regards to the weight of the cue, this is a 19 ounce cue that we have here, and when we weighed this in, it actually weighed in at 18.855 ounces. So we were pretty close with regards to weight, and that smaller deviation in weight again is certainly forgivable when we consider the price point of the cue. So what about negatives with regards to quality? Well, first of all, one minor little niggle, which is exactly the same on the ASKA L2, and that's with regards to the wood stain. Now, I know I just said the wood stain is a positive, and it is. However, one thing to bear in mind if you are looking to buy these cues is the actual colouring of the wood stain. And when you look at Amazon of the colours on these cues, they do appear to be really bright and they pop. And likewise, when you're watching this video, they'll probably look quite bright as well, and that's because when they were probably originally photographed, and certainly here, we have studio lighting. And when you shine nice bright studio lights onto this, it does make the colours appear nice and bright. However, under normal conditions, these wood stains will appear darker than they do in the photographs. That's just something to bear in mind if you are considering buying these. Colours might not be quite as vibrant as you're seeing here. Another minor niggle for our L9 is going to be the butt cap, and this is somewhat of a personal bugbear. Some of these caps, especially on these cheaper cues, can be quite hard and unforgiving, and in general that's not really a big issue, but if you are using the cue for a long period of time, it does become a little bit tiresome. Now, on this particular cue, we did actually find two blemishes on this cue, which perhaps are slightly less forgivable. And the first of those is actually on the transition here between the shaft and the ferrule. It looks like that during machining a little chunk has been nicked out of there, and it has some kind of filler in there. However, it is still super smooth with regards to the transition between the components. And it didn't seem to affect the playability of the cue in any way, but it is a little bit annoying. And the second of which, just below the ferrule here, about half an inch or so below, we have a little shiny spot on the shaft. I'm not 100% sure what that's hiding, but it does feel like there is a slight dent there, so again that might have been filled and sanded. And again, we do have to be realistic, we have to put it in context. At the end of the day, this is a $60 cue. And when you're buying a pool cue at this kind of price point, you do have to be somewhat realistic in your expectations. But that said, the imperfections that we have found here are minor, and as mentioned before, they don't affect the playability of the cue. So when it comes to quality, the L9 is generally very good. We did find some imperfections, but these are far more forgivable at this price point. So we'll award a solid 3 stars out of 5 for quality. So next we need to score the L9 for value for money. What precisely will you be getting for your hard-earned cash? Well, the ASKA L9 has a lot going for it. It's a decent and solid cue and has a nice look, which makes it appear a little bit more expensive than it actually is. No, it's not perfect, but at this price point you're definitely getting a solid and relatively capable cue. So when it comes down to good old plain value for money, the ASKA really delivers, scoring it a rock solid 4 out of 5 stars. A decent cue for a decent price. So finally, we need to take the average of all of our scores from across our 5 test categories to give us our official Average Joe's rating. And the ASKA L9 crosses the finish line with a respectable 3.2 stars. Once again, ASKA have produced a solid and capable beginner's cue that will no doubt be a very tempting purchase for players on a budget. So when it comes to the ASKA L9, there's probably a lot of people that are watching this video who are considering buying this cue and wondering if this is worth the extra $10 upgrade over ASKA's L2. Well, the main upgrade between the cues definitely is the Irish linen wrap that we have here on the L9. On the L2 we have a simple black nylon wrap. Additionally, on the L9 here we have these decorative rings. The rings are far simpler on the L2. And also on the butt of the queue here we have this solid black finish rather than the white and maple stripe that we have on the L2. So yes, there's probably enough there to justify the extra $10 price tag. However, I would say that overall I think that the L2 was a slightly better queue to play with, and the ASKA L2 slightly outperformed the L9 during our testing. And overall the L2 is a little bit more forgiving. The L9 definitely has quite a stiff feel to it, which is quite surprising because you think that the woods would be identical, and also they both have the Le Pro tip. So the differences that we saw between the two could just be down to product variation. But having spent 5 hours or more playing with both of these cues, I would say that the L2 actually has a slight edge over the L9. But that being said, both the ASKA L2 and the L9 are very capable cues, and of course they come in at such a good price point. So if you're looking for a competent beginner's cue or a set of cheap house cues, the ASKAs are definitely a fine choice. And if you are interested in buying yourself the ASKA L9, we will be adding Amazon links for both the single cues and the multi-packs into the video description below. And likewise, we will add some links there for the L2 as well. And so if you're thinking of buying an ASKA cue, please be sure to help support what we do here at Average Joe's Pool, and please help us out and use those links. And so thank you very much for watching our ASKA L9 review. It's very much appreciated. Before you leave us, can you take 1 second out of your busy schedule just to please be sure to at least hit that like button for us. And likewise, whilst you're there, why not also hit that subscribe button? Got loads more great videos on YouTube just waiting for you to check out, and loads more to come. So until next time, I wish I could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner.
Baby, we had some good times in Chicago. I remember. I know you haven't forgotten.